announce it that we are starting and check if everything is good. One, two, three, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, it seems it's working. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, perfect. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, by the way, let us know if everything is working fine. There is no lag, no FPS drop, the voice and the video quality is good. Let me sit into my original position here. And yeah, let us know, let us know. I will also double check and then we can actually start. So many keys. Pum, pum, pum. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, it seems it's 1, 2, 3 working fine. Okay, Joe, let me know if we can start. If you're down to start, let me know. Let me know.
I'm ready to go.
Okay. So welcome everyone in the very new episode of my Dev Live show. I'm today joined with Joe from Harry Hard Games, and I'm very thankful and very honored that we are here with you today. Like I'm always saying, let's start with a little bit of introduction. So please introduce yourself for us.
Thanks for having me here today as well. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be on the stream. So my name's Joe, Joe Bain. I'm from the UK, so I'm based in Scotland, in Glasgow, and I run a small indie studio called Hairy Heart Games, and we make a few different sorts of games. We released a racing game last year called Rally Alley Alley.
Okay.
And we're currently working on a new game which is called Crackernuts, which is a narrative adventure game based on a Scottish fairy tale, and we use handmade assets for all of the art in the game. So everything is constructed by hand. We have puppets and very talented sort of model makers. We scan everything in, and this is how we kind of make the assets for the game.
I see. So my very first question would be, what was your very first memory or contact with video games as a player, if you remember those times of your past?
My very first game. I think I was actually watching one of your other streams here, so I remember you asked this question. I was trying to think back then, and I'm.
Thank you.
So I didn't get. So hope the first few questions I might have a steer on, but I'll probably start. I didn't watch all the way to the end, so we'll see. You'll probably catch me out later on.
True.
I remember playing this. I think it was a SNES at my, which is a Super Nintendo. I'm not sure if you're in Hungary, right?
Yeah, I'm in Hungary. Yeah, in Budapest.
I don't know if they had the same name in Hungary. I know they.
We had. Yeah.
It was SNES, yeah.
Yeah.
My cousin had one, older cousin.
I see.
And I remember trying to play Mario, probably Super Mario World, and it was really difficult. But I also remember playing Pop and Twinbee, which is like a sort of a vertical scrolling shmup where you had to collect these kind of colored bells.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. So from that point of your life, when you like started loving playing video games, what was the first click when you realized that, okay, now I want to make these games that I love to play as well? If you remember that click in your life.
Yeah, I think so I'm nearly 40 now. It's getting older every day.
I see.
And when I was a kid, I think it was difficult to see yourself making games.
I see.
They were these things that were kind of mysterious things, I suppose, that just arrived in the shops. Yeah. And I think it's a bit different now with everything's a bit more accessible and that. But I used to read a lot of magazines. We didn't really have kind of the internet as it is now. I used to read a lot of magazines about game development, and one had an article about this thing called Dark Basic, which was kind of like a bit like a very old sort of crappy version of Unity almost. It was like this game creation engine, but it was meant for beginners. So it was a version of Basic, the programming language, but specifically for games. So yeah, Dark Basic. So I read this and I was like, this is amazing. I think I was maybe 15 or something. I'm gonna get this, and I got the I had to you had to buy it in a box, and it was like 30 quid or something. Um, yeah, and I tried making that, and I made like uh, I sort of like made half of 2 games. I don't think I finished
Okay.
anything in it, but I
Okay.
made a couple of sort of like, you know, prototypes, I suppose.
I see. I see. I see.
Um,
Do you
but yeah, I
have
sort of
those still,
enjoyed
by
it.
the way? Do you have those still? Sorry for interrupting you.
No, no, I think somewhere possibly,
Okay.
yeah, on some old hard drives if
I
they're
see. I
not
see.
been
I see.
corrupted.
I see.
But I never really sort of shared them very much. I think I
I
shared
see.
them to a few friends maybe. But yeah, but then after that, I went to university. I studied programming and studied computer science. So I started making games whilst I was doing that,
I
and
see.
started to release a few sort of prototypes, a few like small indie games.
I see.
Um, yeah, sort of got started there
I see.
uh, a bit more seriously, I
I
suppose.
see. Were
Um,
your family, close friends, and parents supportive about this decision of yours that now you not just love playing video games, but you really like starting a career,
mm.
building around working on video games?
uh, yeah, I think more or less
I
like
see.
my mother's very like a lot of people's parents, very pragmatic,
I see.
So I'm sure everyone recognizes this. Their parents want them to have a secure future
True,
and want them
true,
to
true,
be
true, true,
sensible.
true,
So
true.
video games, like I'm sure like is not
Yeah,
always the most seen as the most sensitive,
true,
sensible, career choice.
true.
So I think when I was studying, I studied something a bit more general, computer science. So
I see.
it was a bit broader than that, and I worked for a long time doing
I
um,
see.
programming for other kind of industries as well. Websites and applications and things like that.
I see.
Uh, yeah, but I think I always saw I wanted to do video games, but I knew I had to do it in a way that kind of paid the bills and wasn't
I see.
irresponsible because
And it makes
we all have
sense
to
at the
make
end of
money.
the day. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I see. Do you think, by the way, it's important to have a supportive background, especially mental background, which supports you mentally and
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, I'm like English, so I'm kind of a bit. I mean, I think maybe from I don't know about in Hungary, but the tradition is not to be sort of too in sort of looking for that kind of thing, stiff upper lip and sort of like
true, true,
just
true.
soldier on and all of this. I think it is important. Yeah, it's not something I'm very sort of keyed into myself.
I see. I see. I see. I see.
Um, but yeah.
I see. Have you had any like questioning yourself time when like you made the first steps in order to really start building your own games and releasing them, or you were like totally into that and no self doubt about it that now you're starting
Um,
it?
yeah, I don't know. I think when I was younger, I was very self-assured.
I see. I
A
see.
lot of young people are, I suppose. Not
True, true,
everyone, but
true. Very true, very
you know,
true.
like I would make these games, and looking back on them, a lot of them weren't that great. But I think at the time I thought they were really good, or at least I was pretty pleased with them. Uh, I mean, I think like more, I've had moments where I've been thinking, because I make my own games, but I tend to freelance a lot. I'm a
I
freelance
see.
developer as well,
I
so
see. I see. I see.
um, sometimes the especially lately the industry has been a bit up and down. There's been
True, true, true.
points where my income has been in the balance, and I've been thinking, well, is this the right career?
Path. Yeah.
Because I have to pay the mortgage. I have to, I have a family, and that I have to support as well. So, but no, in general, I think it's been positive. Yeah.
I see. I see. So you mentioned you're working as a freelancer developer as well. How do you balance your free time and also like the work time and also like working on your own games? Is it hard to balance those three? Like also and
Um.
the family time, of course.
Yeah. It can be. Yeah. I mean, I think think now I tend to be quite like uh yeah, kind of pragmatic about it.
I
Quite.
see. I see.
I don't try to overstretch myself, and
I
like
see.
I think family generally comes first. If I have to,
I appreciate
so
that,
I
by
do
the
a
way.
yeah, I do a lot less work in the evenings and the weekends now than I did when I was in my 20s.
I see.
Um, and I have to make sure that I'm doing my sort of freelance work and getting that all done. But so these days, I think when I was young, I used to do a lot of like stuff in my spare time. I'd make these little things on the weekends or in the evenings, little games. And now I'm a bit more business-like about it. I try and
I see.
approach my side projects as like, a bit more like, that's why I have the company. I'm trying to do things a bit more professionally. So, I'm applying for funding to work on these other projects and, going to publishers to try and get money, although I haven't succeeded in that just, yet. But trying to approach it a bit more like I have projects that I want to do, but I can't just take off work. So I have
True,
to make
true,
sure that
true,
I have money to pay for them and
true,
time to do them. Yeah.
true. Understandable. Yeah, yeah. So I believe in this statement of mine that all of us creators who create our own craft, we always tend to put our inner self into the craft we make.
Mm.
Even if it's like experience about loss, love, or anything that we experienced in our past. Is this statement of mine true for you as a game developer? And what examples could you name if yes, if the answer is yes?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think like when I look around at other games and at my own like games I've made too, like
Okay.
it's quite it's often quite hard to like see the creator in the game, I
I
think.
see. I see. I
Or
see.
sometimes you get a hint of like certain games makers have their own style that they use. They might have a certain art
True, true,
style or
true.
a certain type genre of gameplay that they're really good at making. But it's quite rare to play a game which is like, if you're listening to music, if you go and listen to like Taylor Swift or whoever, I don't know who you like to listen to, but it's
I listen to all
typically
kinds of music, to be honest.
oh,
It's
yeah,
similar to games. I play all kinds of games. I
all
don't have
kinds.
like yeah.
I don't know. I don't really listen to Taylor Swift, but I just I don't know why I thought of her. But it's very like they talk about themselves and their own problems, their own lives, and
True, true,
this
true,
kind of thing. I think in games it's quite rare. It's usually sort of fantasy or sci-fi
true,
or
true, true, true,
war or these kind of
true,
more escapist themes. But
true,
you do definitely get some really nice games where I think they're a little bit more perhaps autobiographical or they touch on the elements of their creators' lives.
true.
But I guess yeah, I haven't made too many games which have featured my own sort of like uh, feelings.
I see,
But
I
I'd think
see,
I'd like to do more of that. Certainly have a desire to do more of that.
I see, I see, I see, I see, I see. So you mentioned that you like were and still work on totally different games, right? So one is like a rally game, one is like this Cracker Nuts, which is totally different from the rally game. What made
Mm.
you like be influenced by these totally two new genres that you are working in and worked in? So you
Yeah,
already
yeah,
had these ideas, or is it something that transitioned from one to another when you were like finished the first project of yours that you released?
yeah. I think like like you're saying, you listen to a lot of music. I think you play a lot of games, different types of games, and I think it's the same for me. I play
I
lots
see.
of different types of games.
I see. I see. I see.
Um, I did when I sort of started Heavy Heart. I had this idea that it would be a studio that just made racing games or focused on
Oh,
racing
okay.
games.
Okay.
And
Okay. Okay. Okay.
the game before Rally Alley Alley, which didn't get finished, it's still sort of in the it's on my on my hard drive or whatever, waiting for the moment to finish it. It was also a racing game, but yeah, I don't know. I found it was a bit of a struggle to like. I like making racing games, and it's a genre that I really enjoy.
I see.
But I found it quite hard to like market them, and publishers didn't seem to be very interested in
I
them.
see. I see.
It didn't seem like a genre that was like really easy to kind of make in a sort of profitable way.
I see.
Um, and then this since I moved to Glasgow maybe 5 years ago, 6 years ago, and I sort of got to be friends with some people up here, some people who worked on games, and so one of them, this guy Fergus Dunnett, who's a collaborator on Crackernuts,
I
he's the
see.
main model maker. So he'd made a few games in Game Maker, and he also makes a lot of models and puppets and things for like theatre
I see.
and street performance. And we sort of saw an opportunity to work together. There was some funding that we could apply for, and so it kind of came about that way. Yeah, and I sort of felt like, well, this is interesting to me too. So I'm not going to sort of like say, well, I can't work on that because it's not a racing game.
I see. I see. Are you, by the way, a more story-oriented person when it comes to games, or a more gameplay-heavy person? Even if it's about like making your own games and also like as a player perspective.
Yeah, I think like more recently, I'm interested in
I see.
story-based
I see.
games.
I see.
I think in the past, I was always more drawn to like more mechanics, like
Okay.
systems-based
Okay.
games. A lot of my games that I made, little personal games were like puzzle games or well, quite a few puzzle games, and then I guess racing games are obviously kind of mechanically driven, but in a different
I
sort of
see.
way.
I see.
But yeah, lately I play a lot of story games, and I've been interested in trying to make them as well. I suppose, like, don't know, yeah, but that will probably change in a few years. We have different tastes, our taste shift, I guess, don't
True.
they?
True. 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 With all the games that we consume, especially, yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, that's it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I saw in the Steam library that, or the Steam store page of your company store page, that there is also a game called Yucatan. Am I right about it? Is it something that you also make with your team members as well? Because it's also
Yeah,
like
so
a racing oriented game, if I'm understanding it correctly, right?
that's right. Yeah, yeah. So that was I sort of mentioned before that was the sort of game that came before Rally
Oh,
Alley
okay,
Alley,
okay,
but
okay, okay. I see.
it so that yeah, I started working on that in like 2017 or something,
I
and that
see.
was when I first kind of formed my company, I guess in a legal sense, when I started freelancing as
I see.
well. Um, and yeah, so that's the racing. It's basically we had there's a demo I think you can play it on Steam,
Yeah, there is. Yeah,
and
correct.
but I was looking for some funding for a
I
publisher,
see. I
something
see. I see.
to try and finish it, and um, sort of reached the end of the road basically with that. So it's a bit on ice. Maybe I'd love to come back to it and finish it at some point, I think. But yeah, for now, it's just sort of yeah, pursuing other sort of things really.
I see. I see. I see. I see. I see. So I was also interested in what was the influence behind the story of Cracker Nauts, because it's like a very
Mm.
refreshing and, in my opinion, unique story, and also like this folklore, folk tale of the Scottish word, right? So it was very appealing to me when I first seen it on the internet. What was the influence behind the
Yeah.
story of it? I was interested in that.
So it's based on a Scottish fairy tale, which is also
Okay.
called Crackernuts
Okay.
or Katie Crackernuts,
Okay.
and it's the story is about this girl who um her mother dies. She's a princess, I think. Her mother
I see.
dies, the queen dies, and then she has her father, the king, remarries. So there's like an evil stepmother type of situation.
Okay.
You know, the evil stepmother has her own daughter, so now she has a sister, stepsister, um, and uh, the stepmother wants this Katie out of the picture.
I see.
So she gets this witch to transform her to put the head of a sheep or a goat onto to replace her own head. Um, and then in the original fairy tale, after that, Katie, the princess with the goat's head, she goes on like a quest along with her stepsister to sort of try and fix the head, and they
I see.
find this pair of princes, and they find this like fairy, like underground sort of fairy kind of cave or grotto or whatever, and they eventually find a magic wand and they fix it, and they fall in love with the princes at the same time, and so happily ever after. So that was the original sort of like inspiration, and we've kept a lot of elements. So we still have obviously the goat-headed thing, and we have the witch and this uh the do we have the I'm trying to remember. We have the yeah, we have the other sister. I'm trying to remember now. I wasn't the writer. We have a writer, Alice, who rewrote a lot of the story, and I'm trying to remember which bits map to which bits. There's another sister who's not evil though. And then there's the prince who's in the original story. The prince is like nice, I guess, but in our
I
story, the
see.
prince is uh, turns out to be the baddie.
I see.
So we sort of changed things around a bit and made it a bit more in the modern day as well. But it's kind of loosely based on that original Scottish story.
I see. I see. So you mentioned that Cracker Nuts will be like more story-driven game that now you are
Mm.
working on. How do you balance though the like to be there and to have there still the gameplay heavy system as well? near the story-oriented and story-based, story-heavy gameplay or game?
Yeah. Like originally, I'd been playing some games like I played a game South of the Circle, which came out a couple of
Okay,
years ago, and another game called uh, Wide Ocean Big Jacket from
okay,
I think Turn Follow is a company, which is a really fantastic game, and uh, those are both like narrative heavy games with very little gameplay.
I see.
Um, you know, almost like visual novels or interactive
I see.
movies.
Okay,
I mean, not quite, but sort of in that sort of end of it, that sort of, And so I think Kraken Nuts was originally I wanted to make something a bit like that, which had almost no gameplay really.
I see.
Um, but we sort of showed the demo to a few people and sort of talked to some friends about it, and I think a lot of people are not very keen basically on that extreme sort of like, people said, well, what a friend of mine who's a developer, I was talking to him about it, and he said, well, why don't you just make a film if that's your aim? I don't
True,
I
true,
sort
true.
of I don't know,
Understandable in some way, yeah.
which is yeah, I think a lot of people really expect a certain amount of gameplay.
True.
Um,
No, but I can
and then
understand
I
your
think
point
so. It
as
also
well. I can understand your point as well because there are visual novels as well which work very well with their story, right? So it's just you really have to find that audience which will be up to consume this story with that genre that you would like to make, right? So
yeah, that's it. Yeah, and I think for me, like storytelling in games is still quite um, there's still a lot of room to like explore that area.
true,
There's a lot of
true,
there are some great games with great stories in, but I think
true, true.
a lot of games either have no story or the story is really a bit limited, I
I agree
suppose.
with you on
And I
that,
think
yeah.
yeah, I don't know, I grew up reading a lot of books as well and watching films, and I think even games which are quite story sort of focused, you often play them, and I feel like the story seems quite underdeveloped. So,
Yeah,
I'm not saying that we've really done a fantastically better job, but I think it's still an interesting thing to explore. But anyway, yeah. So we wanted to add a bit more gameplay, and just to try and give us like I said before, trying to make games which are, it, it's creative on one side, but it's also work. It has to hopefully pay the bills.
I see, I see, I
Or at least
see,
pay for its own costs.
I
So
see.
we wanted to hopefully appeal to a few more players. So I've been playing games like Dordogne, which is this like sort of French countryside
I see,
childhood tale. It's got
I
this
see.
beautiful watercolor graphics, and it kind of really blends the sort of story with some little gameplay elements quite nicely. Um, and stuff like What Remains of Edith Finch, which is like quite a pretty popular game with a lot of sort of light gameplay elements, tied in with the story. So we're hoping we can, give people who are interested a bit more into the gameplay, just something a bit more substantial to get into.
I
But
see.
yeah, it is a bit a balance, I suppose.
True,
They have to support each other,
true, true,
the
true, true,
gameplay and the
true,
story, and
true.
yeah,
Yeah, because like if you like sacrifice one to another, then the one side might suffer because of that sacrifice for another, right? So it's like if you are more story based, then might the gameplay side will suffer because of that. But I feel like it's not a problem because like you said, it's very true that there are some games which like more like gameplay heavy and they are story oriented games, but the story is not that deep, right? So you would like to connect with this story more, but sometimes it's feel like it's like the connection that could be formed through the story with the player and with the game is like way harder to form that bridge. They are still great stories in my opinion, those games too, but it's like it feels harder to form that connection between the
yeah,
game and the player.
yeah. That's it. I mean, and some games don't really need to, you know, not all games need to have a story, right? I think
True,
there's loads
true,
of
true,
great
true, true, true,
puzzle games. I played a lot of Balatro, like everyone has, I suppose, and
true, true, true,
it's
true,
kind of it's great. It's a card game, right? It doesn't
true.
need to
Yeah,
have a story. So
true,
yeah,
true, true. Yeah, and it's really about, in my opinion, that like you said, at the end of the day, developers also have to pay their bills and they have to deal with this expectation of the players, right? So if you target your audience, you still have to like envision this capability of what expectations will the player base have, right? So if they have this vision in order to like be appealing for
Yeah,
them, like to have this gameplay and story driven game, then they might not end up liking the game if there is no gameplay. So it's hard, in my opinion. That's why I always say it's hard to be a developer, right? Because it's not just that you please your own vision and you are up for that for the creative process, but you also have to be appealing to the player base, which is like very hard to balance, in my opinion.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think I sometimes feel a bit like, you know, conflicted on that because it's hard to judge correctly, like the player base and the
True,
sort of
true,
business, the sort of marketability, I guess, or how well your game will do
true,
when you're developing it or designing it. You can think, oh, I've got this idea is going to be like a gold mine, or it's going to be really
true,
appealing to a
true,
lot of
true, true,
players, and it might not quite uh, hit that in reality.
true.
And then if you're sacrificing your own sort of like desires, your own sort of like design sensibility to try and hit um this sort of thing which you perceive as like more sensible, this kind of business thing or this market thing, then you can maybe end up with something worse. There's
True.
some other great developers in uh there's a guy in near not too far from me in Scotland called Jack King Spooner.
Okay.
He recently released a game called Judaro,
Okay.
which has got a lot of like similarity with
I
our
talked
game.
with him
It's
like 2 days ago. Yeah.
oh, you spoke to him?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant! Yeah, how was? I'll have to watch that. Is it on your
Yeah. On my
stream
Twitch.
yet?
On my Twitch. Yeah. Yeah. It's
Oh,
saved.
okay.
Yeah.
I'll definitely watch that. Yeah, but so that's like based on Scottish folklore. It's like all handmade as well. It's a bit more gameplay. It's got this kind of hack and slash kind of like top-down fighting sort of gameplay, which is a lot more sort of gamey than ours, I suppose. Um, but at least from my perception, that game is a lot more.
Not with
It's
him. Sorry, interrupting. Not with him. With Tal Hakai, I spoke with Tal Hakai, not with Jack.
oh, with the
Yeah.
program.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
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 I
But
haven't met.
from that company. Yeah.
Yeah, they're like a partnership or whatever,
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
aren't they?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know him. But I've met Jack a couple of times, but I haven't met the other guy.
I see.
Um, but yeah, that game feels a lot more like has a singular sort of artistic vision, and it
True.
kind of is very strange. Doesn't seem to want to make too many like
True.
compromises towards
True.
being marketable or sort of the business of it. Although having said that, I did see Jack tweeting saying that he felt like this was his sellout game because all of his previous games are like way more weird and way more sort of you know uh his artistic kind of like sensibility. So I don't know. I guess it's complicated.
Yeah, it's complicated, and in my opinion, it's like it's always about the promoting side as well, because the more you promote, the more audience will it reach, the more people will say yes at the end of the day for that they are liking the game, right? Because that's the hard part, in my opinion, that I always discuss it at my dev live shows, that so many games are coming out and it's very hard to like, reach the people. It's not even that like get players attention in order to be appealing to them, but it's really about like, do they know about the game exists, right? Because
Yeah,
there's so many people who might not know about this or that, or at Stara games, that
yeah,
they exist, and that's the sad fact, in my opinion, because like the promotion side of the games is like, in my opinion, very hard. And I always say this, that I feel like it's also like the media is not like doing their job very right, because I feel like, especially when like YouTubers and streamers came in and they started to compete with video game journalists, it's like it became this very weird situation where like everyone is starting to make content about games, but we still end up having an industry from the media side where people are so picky, right? So they are not like you and me or some other people who really into video games and try to play every game, but they are picky, which is on the one side is fine, but if you are getting money for like promoting and showing games to the world, I think, at least from my perspective, that should be your ultimate goal, to show every game, right? Because that's a win-win situation for everyone, right? So
yeah. There was a bit of a like there's always minor dramas on Twitter, but there was one a few months ago. This guy Mike Rose, runs a small publisher in the UK, had tweeted something about they'd been approaching streamers for their new game, and lots of the streamers have been coming back and with rates, essentially saying, well, we can cover the game, but it will cost you, this many $1,000 or euros or whatever.
Yeah.
And he said he felt like that they never wanted to pay for a streamer to cover their games
Yeah,
because
exactly.
kind of
Because
what
they
you
are not
say.
professionals, right? So it's like, and that's the sad fact that it's like I'm always saying this, that for example, for me, I sacrifice my own like income stability from leaving video game journalist websites, doing it for free because I care about games and I didn't want it to be in that video game journalist era where like it was very corrupt and like my bosses told me to downscale the scores of the game similar to Metacritic. And I feel like the video game journalist era or scene is also like suffering from this, that nowadays it's like more hype to write a bad article or a bad appealing article about a game than it was like 10 years ago. Because I remember as a kid, when I used to like read magazines about video games, first of all, in most of them there was no scoring system, and second, it was like analyzing a poem in school. I always transition to this memory of mine. It was like rather, then we did not consider games as art, but we like analyzed them as a form of art. Now we consider games as forms of art, but we like downscaled them. So it's like it's a total nonsense for me. Like the industry changed like in so many ways in just 10 years, and it's so sad in my opinion, because like you said, there are so many great games out there. It's just people really should like try to be more open-minded about games, in my opinion, even on the video game journalist side, even on the player
Yeah.
based side, even on the streamer based side. And yeah, it's sad because at the end of the day we just want to have fun with games, right? So it's not about like, nobody will like benefit from the fact that people start to hate on games or criticize games, because like, yeah, you can have your negative opinion. You can tell that, for example, you don't like something in that game and something should be fixed because it's helpful, right? But if you say that, oh, this game sucks, it won't be helpful. So yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know,
I
it's weird.
it it is tough. I think, like, yeah, growing up when written journalism was really the main sort of vehicle for
Exactly.
games sort of
And
criticism and
people had
review.
to be educated for that as well, right? So it wasn't just you sit down to your computer and now you're a streamer, right? Because nowadays everyone
Mm,
can make contents, which is on the one side is fine because there are some clever people who really care also about and passionate about video games. But in my opinion, I saw so many streamers on Twitch as well. There are so many people who just, in my opinion, not educated well enough to be able to talk about games, because it's not just that you click and smack your face and now you're a journalist. No, it's not that. You have to be educated for that. And that's the problem, in my opinion, that these people are like, it would be like I would go now and be a doctor, right? I'm not educated for that. Then why people can like make content about games if they are not educated? That, and what's funny, I always bring this example of mine. I remember the company who made Lord of the Rings, Shadow of War, and Shadow of Mordor games. I'm not sure if you played with those games, but they asked the streamer community on Twitch and on YouTube as well, when those games had been released like a lot of years ago, that there was like this contract which all streamers had to sign, uh, no matter they got paid for it or not. Everyone who played that game on like the first week after the release, and they couldn't say like bad things about the game. Like they had this list of how they should analyze the game on stream. Graphical side, story side, gameplay side, everything. I remember that I got that contract too, and I had to sign it. And people got mad about it. But in my opinion, in some way it was the right thing to do, right? Because you could like have your negative opinion, but you couldn't say like, oh, this game sucks, right? Because like that's like a thing which not helps for the developers, right? Because if there is a game and there is a bug in the game and you say that, oh, this game sucks because of the bug, it's not helping. The helping hand is when you like screenshot or take a clip from the bug and send to the developers and they can fix it, right? So people won't
yeah.
get annoyed because of that. But you are not doing that work. You're just saying that it sucks. It doesn't help anyone.
I
So
suppose so. Yeah. I mean, for me as like an indie developer, I don't think I would. The problem is, like, the lack of coverage. I think even if it's a bad review, or it's probably better than the right now you tend to get sort of no reviews.
True.
But I think that for me, I see the problem like when this drama that we're talking about kind of occurs. All these streamers were saying, well, it's we need to charge to cover games, right? And that's how do you expect us to make money otherwise? And the more you sort of like looked into it, and I spoke to a few. There's a Discord channel for streamers in Glasgow, and I spoke in there to some people and tried to understand it. And I think it's the economics and the incentives of like just not they're not helpful, right? Back in the day of like printed media, you had these big organizations which were the magazines or the newspapers or whatever, and they had a certain amount of power and a certain amount of like reputation that they wanted to sustain. They wanted people to buy their thing each week. And also, if like you say with that Shadow of Mordor thing, if a company went to them and said, you can only have the game if you give us a good score, well, they had the power to say no, because they had a lot of readers, they had maybe a lot of other magazines they published, and they had a weight that was matching the game developer. At least it was, they were able to stand up to them. But now if you have one streamer, on YouTube or on Twitch, they have like no power really. They get very little income from Twitch or from YouTube, even though YouTube and Twitch make a lot of money. They get, very little say in terms of the big AAA games, what they're covering and stuff. And so they're in this really tricky situation where a lot of them make hardly any money, and they're only really able to sustain those big audiences if they write very clickbaity, kind of like rage baity stuff. They don't have the freedom to write like nice, thoughtful essays on indie games or whatever.
Very true.
I don't know what the solution to that is, but
sadly, I would say sadly,
yeah.
In my opinion, the solution would be like, at least a simple solution would be, from my perspective, is that like every company should have like, or at least like there should be companies which like form this group of educated people who really care about games, right? Because like you mentioned, when there was the time of video game magazines, those people who applied for this job as a journalist, they wanted the job, right? Because they cared about writing about games. Nowadays, streaming is not that much of like caring about like streaming games, right? Because I feel like nowadays, because like it's open to everyone, and you don't have to have knowledge for to stream, right? You just have to have a computer and one click and bam, stream is like on, right? So it's not that you apply for a job because you care, but you can sit down and if you are bored with your life and you have games in your library, whatever platform you play on, you just one click and stream it, right? So everyone can be a streamer, and I think that's the problem, in my opinion. On one side it's great, but on the other side it's like, I feel like that's how we end up having these people, like you mentioned, that they start to care about the income, which is fine, of course, because it's their life, right? So they have to be stable in their life money wise. But on the other hand, they end up being these mean people who are not really care about games, but just the money, right? And promoting games for the money. And I think it's sad, because at the end of the day, they might end up being in the same situation, not having money, because this money oriented, money hungry like mentality of theirs, and they also won't be able to help companies. So the perfect scenario would be everyone play every game, right? And they are trying to, or at least there are like genre oriented like streamers, right? So for example, one person plays RPGs. There are some genre oriented streamers, by the way. There are like Lobos, who is playing like Souls like games, and he's trying all Souls like games, right? And he's trying his best to like promote those games. So I don't know. It's hard. It's hard, and it makes me sad and my heart break, because like you mentioned as well, and I totally agree on that there are so many great games, and they are not even getting covered. Like I saw some point and click adventure games which had like one review on Steam, and they are great in my opinion, and nobody knows about the game. And I was like, why nobody is like making any review about it? Or yeah, it makes me so sad.
Yeah, definitely. It's tricky, but we do our best, I guess. Like you're obviously trying to spread the word about
I'm
interesting
trying,
developers,
and
and
I hope that my work will get to the people. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So more personal question from me would be again, how have you changed as a person in other territories of your own life from being a game developer for so many
Mhm.
years with so many experience now?
That's a tricky question, I suppose.
You haven't watched till this part, right?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't get that far. The how have I don't know really. I mean,
If you changed, of course.
yeah, I think I've. It's hard to like unpick your own sort of like story, I suppose. You know,
I
if you
see.
start making games when you're a kid or when you're a teenager, and then you continue doing it, it's just part of your whole sort of like outlook and your whole sort of experience. Um, I think being a developer makes you view games differently. You for sure. You know, you sort of my son he's 5 now and he's getting into this age where he wants to play games, and I try and be a bit careful about what he's playing
I
because you
see. I
can
see. I
see
see.
how a lot of the stuff that's targeted at the little kids is just very low quality and like sort of designed to be addictive or sort
True.
of
True. True.
prey
True.
on their sort of you know those addictive tendencies. Um, but yeah, I don't know the wider sort of thing. There's probably a lot of things, but it's hard for me to sort of perceive them perhaps.
I see. I see. I see. I see. Do your son, by the way, play your games, or you are not allowing him to play your games?
No, I tried. I think I tried him with a couple. I did try to get him to play Rally Alley Alley,
I
but
see.
he found it a bit difficult.
I see.
Uh, and another guy, I worked as a freelancer on a game called Pool Panic years ago,
Okay.
which is like a very cartoony game where it's like a sort of pool, like type of thing. But
I see.
yeah, again, he found it a bit difficult, the controls. But he's just he's just getting into these things now. We played Mario Wonder, which he quite enjoyed, but that's got a lot of really good
Nice.
options for young players.
Nice. Nice.
Um,
Nice. Nice.
and he's playing Piku Niku at the moment,
Oh, nice.
which
Okay.
is a lovely sort of game, very low sort of uh you can't really die or anything, so it's not too scary, and I can help him out if there's puzzles are a bit tricky.
I see.
But yeah.
I appreciate, by the way, that you are really like trying to maintain what he can play and what he can't, because in my opinion, it's important. It's important in my opinion. Yeah, especially
Mm,
nowadays with the power of internet, right? He can access everything, so it's like you have to really be there
yeah,
for him and not to find some scary stuff, you know. Yeah. Yeah.
that's it. He's got like a tablet, an Android tablet, and he plays some games on there. And I've downloaded some sort of educational ones or some
I
slightly,
see.
better. There's a great game called Metamorphabet, which is like a
Okay.
alphabet teaching game, but it's got really beautiful animations and everything. But immediately he's like latched onto these kind of hyper casual games. They're so like bright and colorful, and the
True.
sound
True.
design is
True.
really
True.
engaging, and they're obviously just sort of stuffed full of adverts and things like that too. Um, but like I think if you were like someone who had a big library of books, and then you had a child and you just gave them like flyers from the local takeaway to read. Do you know what I mean? Like you're like, no, this is free, so he can just read that. I'm not going to buy him any books, any like real books, kind of. And that's I think these hyper casual games that a lot of kids play. It's
True.
like
True. True.
it's like a little takeaway flyer or something. It's so
True. 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 Very
low
true.
quality.
Very true, very true, very true. It's interesting because I remember as a kid there were so many, like, for example, Disney oriented like educative games, if you remember those. Like
Mm,
there were so many of these point and click, small and short point and click adventures with actually, by the way, hard puzzles, in my opinion. At least
mm.
then I remember them as hard puzzles. And they really taught me of English language and also like, how
Okay.
to solve the puzzles. I miss those games in these days. I think that those games should be available for kids these days. They are probably on the mobile phone and on the tablet system, but I think on consoles and on PC it's getting more rare to have these educational games, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah. There are some out there. There's a
There
few
are, but
like
it's
decent,
yeah,
but they get it's sort of like we were saying with streamers, where it's the whole online sort of like ecosystem, all the good stuff kind of gets drowned by
True,
all the
true.
noisy kind of like
Yeah, and kids
other
get to
stuff.
play like those games which are like popular in the streamer community, which you mentioned as well. It's very true. Minecraft
Yeah,
got also like way more popular when like streaming came into like reality also on YouTube.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tried playing Minecraft with him. I never played Minecraft myself, really. So I played a little bit. He can't really play it, but he was quite interested to watch me playing it. And I think he's aware that, there's so many Minecraft backpacks or toys or whatever that people
True,
are wearing. So he
yeah.
sees the design around, so he's kind of interested in it. But yeah, it's quite. I didn't mind Minecraft actually, as it go as it's better than some of these kind of mobile games. Uh,
True.
it's a very sort of like strange game. I think as someone who hadn't played it before, I was like, "Where's the tutorial? What am I doing? Why am I dying so much?" I wasn't expecting it,
I see. I
but
see.
yeah.
So throughout the life as a developer, what was your favorite thing about the process of making games so far?
Mm. I think it's yeah. I mean, I do like the whole sort of game design thing. Coming
I
up with an
see.
idea and sort of trying to see it, into reality.
I see.
Um, I think the most like enjoyable thing is usually, when we were at Gamescom, that's where you saw our game, and those types of events are so like much fun. Well, Gamescom was really hard actually because it's so long, but in general, taking games to events is like really rewarding because you have this thing which you're like working away in private at, and then to have it in front of people and see their reactions and talk to them about it is really rewarding, I think.
I see. I see. So we talked about your favorite parts. What about the hardest parts of the process of making games so far?
Um, God, yeah, how long have we got? I mean, I
There's a
find,
list, right?
yeah, making games is like a very technically kind of challenging
I see.
thing to do, I think. And I'm a programmer, so I feel like a lot of the time, the bit of the game that I'm working on is like the bugs basically, and I'm
We talked
just
about that, yeah.
constantly, yeah, I constantly feel like I need to retrain and be an artist or something or a musician because I just don't. I get very tired of fixing bugs and dealing with
What was the
with
longest
technical
time of
issues.
like you finding a bug where you like had this longest time of your life of
Oh, I don't know.
really finding a bug?
It's hard to remember. It's hard to sort of like, you can spend like weeks though. Sometimes you
I
have
see.
an issue, and you'll be sort of trying to figure it out for literally weeks or even
I see.
months. I think I was working at freelance on this VR game earlier this year,
I see.
and they're developing it for PlayStation 5 and Quest VR and PC VR as well. And they have a build machine, which is like a computer, which is in the cloud, but it's like a system which creates new builds of the
I
game. So it
see.
would
I
do
see. I
those
see.
different platforms. So, um, and for some reason, the PlayStation versions weren't being built correctly. It was an
I
error
see.
coming out instead of the
I see.
version of the game. And I think for almost a solid month, maybe even a
Okay.
month and a half, I was trying to fix this issue and I was kind of doing other things as well. And I would go away and do something else and come back to it. And it was just so depressing to be looking at the same thing. And then when you fix it, finally, no, almost doesn't care because like really, it's not like a new thing that you've created. All you've done is restore sort of the status quo.
I see. I
Yeah.
see. I
So
see. I see. I see. You manage like how do you manage like to find out what is the solution for a bug? Like, are you influenced by something, or is it like just a click when you like realize what's the problem behind the program or in the program?
yeah, I mean, it's always a bit different, really. And I
I
think
see.
like it. I'm trying. Honestly, I can't quite remember what the problem was with this one, but a lot of the yeah, it always varies. I find like I use Unity mostly for my work,
I see.
and I find it can be quite a challenging kind of environment to work in because it's got this kind of slightly difficult mix of it's a big, private, closed source application,
I see.
And if there are problems within it, you can't really investigate them yourself. You're quite limited in how you can get into
I see, I see, I
into
see.
the program. And so often when you're dealing with these problems, you'll get to a certain point, and it just doesn't work, and there's no real way you can get further into that.
I see,
And you can report it to Unity and ask their solution, and they might give you a good one, but quite often they don't. They're not very helpful,
I see,
and you might find something online, but there's so many different versions now and so many different forums. It's quite hard sometimes, to really get anywhere with that. I do find that quite frustrating, I
I
think.
see.
But yeah, that's why I think I'm gonna move into UI design. I think just lots of boxes. I just draw them.
I see, I see,
But
I
yeah.
see, I see. How do you balance, by the way, the influence between like your freelance work and also like your own games? Because I'm guessing that there is always like influence from one to another, right? But how do you balance those influences, not having too much into the other projects from one to another?
Yeah. Uh, I don't know. I think it's generally sort of fine. I mean, most of the
I see,
freelance work is quite, I guess, different from what I'm doing
I see,
privately in terms of, I guess, the design. But then also, I'm very rarely involved very much in the design side
I
of
see,
things for my freelance work. I'm
I
mostly
see,
doing technical work.
I see.
So yeah,
Okay, okay.
sometimes you sort of borrow a few sort of technical things that you've learned or bits of approaches. But yeah,
I see, I see,
um,
I see. So, what about the future? When we can hear something new about Cracker Nuts, and what is the release date goal or plan for the
yeah.
game, if you have any plans and you can share with us?
No, yeah. So the current aim, I think, is to launch the game next summer. So
Okay,
perhaps
okay.
July or August, maybe we'll
I
see.
see, I see,
Um, we've currently sort of spoken to every publisher out there, nearly in some sort of form,
I see,
and they've we've not managed to secure any funding in that sort of way. So we're looking at some more grant funding now. Hopefully, we'll get a little bit more funding to sort of finish the game. Um, I think if we don't, I think it'll probably be hopefully it will still come out in the summer. It might just be
I
a
see,
bit of a sort of cut down version of what it would otherwise be. But yeah, hopefully we should know better. Um, in the spring and sort of February or so, we'll find the outcome of those grant applications. So I think we'll try and do. I want to try and release a demo. Maybe I was going to do it for Halloween, but then I got some advice saying maybe we shouldn't. So we'll maybe
I
try
see,
and release the demo in the spring,
I see,
and maybe try and do a release date announcement around the same time.
I see. Are you planning, by the way,
But
to
yeah.
have console editions of the game as well, or just PC so far?
Yeah, so we wanted to Switch and PC to begin with, and then
Okay,
potentially do the other consoles if the release goes well. I think, you
I
know.
see, I see, I see, I see. You also mentioned your love for old school games as well, since you started very early
hmm
playing games, right? Are you planning to, because of this fact, are you planning to also have a physical edition of your game for consoles or for PC as well?
Um, I haven't made any plans that way. I think it would
I
be
see,
interesting. I think it would be cool. Yeah, I don't know. It's not something I've really considered much. I don't,
I see,
and it's we'd have to work with someone to do that, I suppose. So
I
it'd
see,
probably be, if someone came to us and said, "Hey, would you like to do a physical edition?" I'd probably say yeah, but I haven't had any conversations around that so far. So
I
I don't
see,
know if that would happen or not.
I see. So going back to Yucatan, what about that game? Are you
Mhm.
planning to work on that game as well again? Are you planning to release it like next year, or it's like still an ongoing process of when it will be finished
Yeah,
and
it's
released?
it's yeah, very much like an ongoing I did open the project the other day, and it was like
Oh,
it
okay,
was Unity 2017. It was saved in last, so I tried to update it to a newer version. Um, but yeah, realistically, it's just sort of on ice until I don't know, to be honest. Maybe if I have a lot of free time in the future, I could come back to it, or maybe if one of we make another game which is brings in a bit of money to the company,
I see, I
we
see, I
have some
see,
freedom to work on
I
it.
see.
But yeah, I think I wouldn't hold your breath on it. It could be a while. It could be a long
Okay.
wait.
Okay. We will
Um,
wait. We will
Cliff.
wait for that. Yeah. Okay. Okay. We touched here, by the way, a lot of topics. Are you down to go into some questions from my community, from my chat as well
Yeah,
before
of
I
course.
ask some
Yeah.
more? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Let us know, ladies and gentlemen, by the way, if there is any question. Oh, there is. Okay. Minnie is asking. What was the influence behind making the characters? So what influenced the characters and making the exact characters that are in the trailer and on the Steam page of the game that we'll be finding in the game? But you talked about that. That's it's this is the fairy tale. Also, Min is
Yeah.
saying that.
Well, I think the original sort of like characters came more or less from the fairy tale. The descriptions, the people who made the models, it was kind of up to them
I see. I
how
see.
they really looked in the end. So I think we had 3 different puppet makers who were working on
I
the
see.
characters. So my friend Fergus, who I mentioned before, Fergus Dunnett, he made the prince and the princess, who I don't think the princess is in the trailer or the demo, but the prince is in the demo. He's on the beach, I think, in the demo in
I
the
see.
trailer, and he appears briefly in the demo in the crystal ball. But he's kind of modelled a bit on British royal family. I think he's supposed to look a bit like one of the Prince Harry, perhaps, so he's kind of a bit balding and sticky out ears and stuff. And then I think one of the best character designs, one one of the favourites from people playing it is the witch character, the hen wife. So she's got this kind of branching, these twigs coming out of her head. She's sort of a bit reminiscent of like Pan's Labyrinth, that character with the hands sticking out. But yeah, that was a puppet designer called. Was it, I'm gonna forget now. I had it in my head a second ago. Um, I can't. It's escaped me. Sorry, I've forgotten her name. But
It's okay.
anyway,
It's okay. It's
she's
okay.
a fantastic
I'm bad with
puppet
names
maker.
too, so don't worry about it.
No, I know. I should remember. The trouble was, it was a bit of the structure of the company is uh, everyone is a freelancer. So we
I
had the
see.
puppet makers, model makers in for a few months about a year ago,
I see.
and I wasn't really working with them directly either. So I've met them a couple of times each, but um, I don't know them super well anyway. But yeah, so she came up with that design herself, based on I think some sort of descriptions from the writer. Um, but yeah, very much just I think that's a nice way to work for me. Is like everyone gets their own sort of little piece of
Yeah.
slice of the pie, and they can be creative within that.
I see. I see. And I respect that, by the way. Yeah. Creative freedom is
Mm.
important. Yeah. Thank you, by the way, for the question and answer. Okay, there is more from Minnie, by the way. Oh, so okay, so the additional question to this original question that Minnie asked is that she meant the look and also like the movement of the characters.
Mm. So yeah, I get the movement is sort of interesting because we used motion capture for
Okay.
like all of the animations within the
Okay.
game. So we had a bunch of actors, mostly from like the theatre, and they came in and we recorded them doing the scenes, and that's where we get a lot of the animation from.
I see.
So it gives it quite a sort of like, I think, lifelike, quite a lot of subtle movements and things going in the conversations.
I see.
Um, but yeah,
Okay.
hopefully that answers the question.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that. And yeah, and she also stated that on one hand it's like a very cutish style, on the other hand it's like a bit of a scary word, but it's awesome with this combination. So yeah.
No, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you for the question and answer as well. Thank you. I remember, by the way, when first time I saw your game on the Gamescom, it really reminded me the vibe of like playing medieval as a kid. So it was like very similar vibe for me, and I totally like
Oh,
it was totally appealing for me to see this game because like I miss games like kind of like having those vibe as medieval had. So yeah.
yeah, yeah, definitely. I Yeah, I like the sort of slightly creepy side of
True,
kilter
true,
thing. I
true,
remember
true.
playing medieval back in the day. Yeah, sort of forgot about that. It was a funny like sort of funny game. I remember it being quite awkward to play, but the character was really fun with the sort of skeleton and that. Anyway, I remembered the name of the puppet maker. Her name is Neve Pierce. I don't know if I can put a link in the chat, but I've just
sure.
there.
Do that. I will highlight you for you. Yeah.
Yeah. So, she's makes loads of really great puppets and kind of handcrafted things for different.
Oh, okay. I'm just checking it now. Nice. Wow. Okay. Nice. Since you mentioned that you worked with so many people, do you believe, by the way, in perfect synergy between team members, or is it something that develops out through the process of working together on a project?
Yeah, I guess like some people work well together, and some people don't work so well together. I think to an extent it's something you can develop with someone, the more you work with them. But I think also there's a big part of it which is just the sort of like sensibilities that you bring into a thing. And I think there is a big I've worked quite a bit with people from outside of games. I worked with a company a few years ago doing a VR project, but they all came from a background of film mostly, and sort of like and arts and stuff. And the way they approached making this VR experience was very different from how a games company would make it, and it made the collaboration sort of challenging in some places, just because their expectations were different. Even the names of things, you'd had different names for the same things and different names for the same roles and stuff. And that happened a bit on this project too with Kraken's. We had all these people from like theatre and from model making and stuff, and so even just we had to like teach each other the words for what we were talking about. We were having long conversations about pipelines. In games development, you have like an art pipeline, which is like how you get your art, from a concept into the game, sort of thing. And that's not really something you have in model making. I think you just not at least not in the same way. Because there's not so many technical constraints around it. So yeah, but it's quite fun in a way, sort of bridging those gaps, and then also you learn sort of different ways of working yourself. So yeah.
I see. Do you think, like, by the way, since you worked for so many years on games, you are at the right place and the right time in your life now? Then, because since it was a dream of yours, right? So, do you think, like, by making games, you are happier and you found more yourself or of yourself in life? I know it's a hard question. Again, a surprise question.
Yeah, no. I suppose so. Yeah, like
Okay.
I when I was a bit younger, I was working for a long time doing websites and things like that, and um, those jobs were good, and I had lots of nice colleagues and things like that. But I think there's also always a bit of an itch, that I wanted to scratch in terms of working on games. I do sometimes feel like I'm not quite there yet, but maybe you always feel like you're not quite there in terms of you have ambitions that you haven't quite reached.
And new goals, yeah, sure.
I'd like to have a bit more sort of freedom to work on my own games.
I see. Oh, the connection. Oh, now it's good.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah, my
No, it's
Wi-Fi
okay.
here is maybe
It's
not
okay.
great.
It's okay. It's totally.
Krakennuts has been such a fun project to work on, but it's been actually quite a small slice of my sort of life over the last sort of year and a half.
I see.
And it would be nice if it could be a bigger part. All these types of games that are a bit more interesting.
Yeah, and you mentioned it before that you would like to do more personal games, right? So it matters for you. I see.
That's it. Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
What kind of genres would you like to touch with the personal stories of yours? Have you been thinking about that, or it's still something that it's the future plans?
Yeah. Well, I have a game that I've been sort of sketching out for a while, since before Krakennuts, which was a very narrative sort of based game, and it had a lot of probably similarity in some ways with Krakennuts in terms of like, I guess, how maybe the structure and the way is it, the genre, some of the technology and stuff as well.
I see.
But I think as a writer, I still feel a bit sort of amateur, so I didn't really feel confident enough to get into that. I think probably the next game I'm planning to make, or at least to start on, is going to be completely different though. I want to make
I see.
a stock trading game.
Okay.
I've decided.
Okay,
So
that's really different. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
I don't. I think I wanted to. Sometimes it's nice to do something different. I
True,
think,
true,
isn't it? If
true,
you've been
true,
doing
true.
one
It's
thing for
also
a
a
while, so
challenge, right, for you to be able to challenge
yeah,
yourself. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's it. Yeah. Well, I feel like it's maybe something I can do a bit more confidently in
I
terms
see.
of, it's probably something that's a bit more mechanically driven, and the art demands of the art are probably a bit lower. Something I could probably do myself. So
I
yeah.
see. I see. Do you think, by the way, if because since you mentioned that you have this self doubt about the art process and also the story writing process, if you would happen to start building a game on your own, do you think like if you would happen to have more free time, you wouldn't have that self doubt and you would make the first step right away into like writing the story itself and also like developing your
Yeah.
art skills and doing the art by yourself as well?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I think I've been trying to learn to do 3D modeling recently. Been
I
trying to
see. I
expand
see. I
that, but yeah,
see.
I don't know. I think I would like to do more games which are a bit more had a bit less pressure around them.
I
That's
see.
it.
I
A big
see.
Coconuts is a relatively big project. There's lots of people involved. There's a big. It's quite expensive, I guess, to run.
I
Relatively,
see.
I mean, nothing compared to like a real sort of big game, but but for me, it's quite quite a lot of money involved, and
I see.
yeah, the pressure is quite high, I suppose. So yeah, it's nice to make something which is a bit more messy and a bit more low key,
Creative
low
and not
fi.
money oriented. That's there is no money
Yeah.
pressure. Yeah, I got you with that. I totally understand you. Yeah, yeah. So you mentioned you play and played so many games. How your perspective as a player changed from being a game developer now?
Mm. You Yeah, you definitely know. I think you notice a lot more of um the craft, I suppose. The sort of the way things are put together.
I see.
You can play a game and you can
I
sort of
see.
identify elements that you recognize. How things have been put together. Or sometimes I like it when you play a game and you're like, how have they done that effect? I was playing a game I mentioned earlier, South of the Circle,
Okay.
which it's really a narrative game, but it's got quite a nice sort of cell shaded sort of visual.
I see.
And one thing I was playing it, I thought the shadows are really, really nice in this game. The shadows are, when you use Unity, the shadows often don't look that great, to be honest. They're quite blurry, and they tend to you tend to see the sort of edge of them quite roughly. And
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
in this game, they were very smooth, the shadows, and very sort of
I
like
see.
even, and just looked really appealing. And for ages, I was looking at trying to think how they did it. But I met the developer at an event, and he explained to me how they'd done the shadows. So it was a big learning moment for me. But yeah, so that's
Nice.
it. You
Nice.
play
Nice.
games, and
Nice.
it's supposed to be about the story, and you're just looking at the shadows.
The small shadows. Yeah. But
Yeah,
it's also part of the story, right? Who knows or who not? Yeah. True. 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 True.
yeah.
True. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, by the way, any more questions? Let us know. 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 Any more questions? By the way, we touched here a lot of topics. Is there anything that you would like to mention or to talk about? Because I asked some personal questions, some game development oriented questions about your games as well, about the future. Is there anything that
Mm.
you think that we missed and you would like to touch on as a topic or talk about?
No, it's been really great to talk to you. I think there's been a
Thank
lot
you.
of really interesting topics
Thank
to
you. I
discuss.
feel the same.
You've done a lot of these interviews now. Is this number 70 or
Number
something?
90, 97, 97. Yeah.
97.
Yeah.
Uh, So nearly 100. Wow.
Yeah.
That's what do you see as the future for your sort of channel? Are you gonna continue doing these
Yeah, I would
interviews?
like
Do you want?
to. Yeah, I would like to. I would like to because I feel like my goal was always to like not just promote games and educate people player base with about games, but also like make this bridge between the developers and the players. Because like I said before, I I don't know, I really hated the part of being a video game journalist when like my bosses downscale the scores which I gave to like games, because I was way more like positive about like analyzing, games. And I feel like that's what brought me here, in order to like, realize that people have this ongoing cancel culture, not just in other territories of our real life, but in the video game industry as well. And since like gaming was always something that was dear to my heart and I care, and like I said, I try to play with all kinds of games and all games, and it's hard because like we discussed it, it's like so many games are out there. I probably won't finish every game in my life, and it's for sure because there are so many games out there. But I would like to, and that's why I feel like this is my like destiny to keep on going, even if there is no company behind my back. I'm trying to like push towards and to
Yeah.
get more people's
Well,
attention. So it's a win-win for everyone, because like I think that not just that people's games will be promoted on my show as well, but also like there will be finally a connection, and people won't be those assholes who like type your game sucks on Steam, right? Because it's so annoying. And yeah, I mentioned it earlier in my some of my episodes of my Devil Show, is that it was so not just annoying, but the words sad is better for this to say, sad to see that there were some developers who were scared to give me an interview because they get bullied and threatened by the player base, because the player base did not like the theme of their game. For example, there was like a developer who was making a Lovecraft oriented game, and they told me that they would be down normally for the interview, but they are scared because like they got so many like death threats
wow.
after the launch of the game. And it was so sad to me. Like it's in my opinion, it's like, I don't know, we are living in a very scary world. Games should
Yeah.
supposed to be fun playing them, and not like having this hate oriented people who just and also the fact is that if I love games, I experienced it so much, especially on the internet. If I stream games, there are some people who do not like it. They tend to be like harsh with me as well because I love the game that they don't. And it's so
hmm
stupid, right? Because like for me, I think that for my own money, which I get from my work, I should be able to decide what games I buy, right? Because that's
Yeah.
my life, not those people who watch me on the internet playing games, right? So it's like so weird for me that people have, or tend to have, at least let's say that they do not have power, but they tend to have so much power because of the internet. So I want to change that. I want
Yeah.
really like just to get people to realize that it's not a win-win situation for anyone. It's just makes everyone sad and unhappy. So yeah,
Yeah. That's it. Yeah. That whole atmosphere is. I haven't had to deal with any death threats. I don't think I've had any games which have
I
been
hope
sort
so
of in the
that you
public
won't
eye
in the
enough.
future. So
But
yeah,
yeah, no, it must be scary. I think
yeah,
even if
yeah,
99% of those are sort of really just they don't kind of have any meaning to them.
true, true,
It's still
true,
not
true,
nice to be receiving them.
true, true, true.
Um,
Yeah,
but
because
I think that
creative
you're right.
person.
These things,
No, go for that.
uh,
Sorry.
so yeah, giving a face to developers and trying to talk to them is probably, I feel like, a good solution because it really, if you're just looking at a name or a piece of text on the
True,
internet, you can
true,
imagine whatever kind of
true,
thing you want behind it.
true,
And
true, true,
but
true,
if you're
true,
seeing someone, it's hard to sort of you have to realize that they're another person and they're not kind
true.
of evil or whatever and don't
True,
deserve
true, 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 true.
to be
They
treated that
don't
way.
want to take away your money just because they release the game, right? So it's like up to you if you
Yeah,
buy the game or not. But yeah, yeah, it's weird. It's weird. People's mentality has been very weird about games nowadays, and I always say this, that when I was a kid, I always wished for more people to play the games because we got bullied in school by being gamers, and nowadays I wish I would going back to those times of when I get bullied by playing games or for being a gamer. But yeah,
yeah.
it is what it is. It is what it is. Okay. Okay. My closing question would be, by the way, what would be your advice for people who would like to make games from all of your experiences so far in the video game industry as a game developer?
Yeah. Um, I I think yeah, it's a good time. I think if you feel like you want to make a game,
I see.
there's a lot of resources out there. There's a lot of free tools that you can use. Um, so it's a great time to get started. And I think just to sort of jump in, I definitely yeah recommend it. I don't know in terms of specific advice though. Um, I sort of I was saying I'm a Unity developer for a long time, but I'm thinking of leaving it to be honest. And I think it depends what your goals are, but I probably wouldn't recommend someone pick that up as the first engine right
I
now
see.
because it doesn't seem like it's got a very kind of rosy future. But then having
I
said
see.
that, you can still get a free version. And it does a lot for you in terms of being, has a lot of features in it. Um, but yeah, ultimately just try and do something interesting, I suppose, and try and do something that's small. That's always a good advice. If you're getting started, aim low and try and get some stuff finished and see it out there and enjoy making it.
I see.
Don't feel like you need to. Games can take a long, long time to make. I think that's something people don't always realize when they're getting started. Like if you're a musician, and you want to write a song, you can write a song in a day or a week or something. If you're making a film, even that might take a few months. But like people can be making games for years and years
True. True. True.
and
True.
decades even, and it's like an endurance sport sometimes, endurance
True.
thing. So it's nice to try and make small things when you're starting out and
And
not
it's
try and get
also a
sucked
learning
into a sort
process,
of like,
right? If you like make smaller
yeah,
games at the beginning. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that's it, yeah,
Okay. Okay. Thank you again for your time.
yeah,
Thank you, and thank you for the questions as well from the chat. I appreciate that as well. Thank you. So yeah, it was
great,
really a pleasure for me and the honor.
yeah,
And yeah,
likewise,
thank you, thank you. Like I said, I will need some more of your minutes of stream, but for those who will be watching us back as a VOD version interview on Twitch or a YouTube edited version later on YouTube, thank you so much for joining with us today. And yeah, thank you that you also joined us for today's episode.
okay.
Have a nice day, everyone, or a night, depending where you live. And don't forget to wishlist cracker notes, right? So it helps. Don't forget to do that. And try out the demo.
Yeah.